Over the last 6 years, I've polished my French from barely existent to practically fluent. And there have been some milestones along the way. Bagging a job that requires French is a very tangible stamp of approval, but there was something that felt even more real. This video with Easy French. If you're new here, my name is Joshua Balata and I'm an Indian expat living here in Paris. Now, this isn't my first time working with the team. I've worked on 4 other projects with them in the past. But this one is special because I'm asking French people about their own history. There's the French part and the history part, and you need to know both. And that's not really easy. I can't believe I couldn't express myself in French back in 2016. Despite how far I've come, I made mistakes during the shoot. A lot of mistakes. There are some basic conjugation rules I need to master. You may not believe me when I say this because of the accent and the speed of my spoken French, but I make a lot of grammar mistakes. I make much more mistakes in French than I do in English, and watching back some of these recordings makes me cringe a bit. And I wonder how I could improve that. To isolate what I need to improve, I watched back all the videos I've appeared on in their channel and noted down the mistakes I made. One thing becomes painstakingly clear. I need to work on French grammar, something I've been avoiding all these years. If I want to say I slept well last night, here's what my brain does with all the grammar rules. This sentence is in the past, so I need to use one of 2 past tenses, passé composé or imparfait. This verb is not habitual or repetitive and it happened at one go, so it's the passé composé, not the imparfait. For the passé composé, I need an auxiliary verb between être and avoir. These are the 2 choices I have. And my verb, dormir, does not come into the être maison, which just happens to exist. So then I have to use avoir. When I conjugate avoir with my subject, it becomes j'ai. Now I need to find the participe passé of my verb, which is dormir. Now, dormir is a regular IR verb, so it just ends with I in its participe passé. This generates my 30-second calculated response to how did you sleep last night? J'ai bien dormi hier soir. Now the reason I've avoided grammar all this while is because I don't know how else to use it. My mind tends to replace it like a formula, and that's way too tedious for me to calculate before saying something. That's the only way I know how to use grammar. Then there are 2 ways to speak a language without making mistakes. Consume enough of your target language and don't care about the rules. Or learn grammar. This is how I learned my English and my Hindi, in fact. Without how many regular verbs in English? And how many cases in Hindi? I don't know. But I do know when a sentence sounds right, and if it doesn't sound right, I know how to make it sound right. Now, I speak Hindi fluently, and I just discovered that there are these complex cases in the Hindi language, just like in German. And back when I was learning Hindi, I don't remember struggling with this, or I didn't have this need to organize all these cases in a neat table. For a reason I can't explain, I just knew which word from this table fit into which sentence, and I never had the need to organize it in a table. That probably just comes from consuming a language over years, and now I don't want to wait 10 years before my French is flawless. The French didn't learn it this way either. Actually, I didn't succeed at any language with grammar. Jamunu tungna parama. Aram makkonde nodkonana. Slept like a baby last night. Now, I spent some time reading some French grammar rules, and it's so much more easier to absorb it, benefit from it now that I speak the language fluently than it was back when I was learning it. I was invited by the good folks over at Easy French for another video a couple of weeks ago, and this is such a valuable snapshot of my progress in French. I use a conditional without mistakes. I used to make a lot of these mistakes before. I'm a little better at that. Now, given the accent and the speed with which I deliver my French, you may not notice this, but someone who speaks the language really well can point out a bunch of mistakes I'm making when I speak French, especially when I write it, because I'm better with speech than with written stuff. I was trained in the farm. I remember preparing for the B1 exam a couple of years ago, and I remember how hard it was to remember to the letter, to memorize, to mug up these rules, because they were not even remotely familiar to me. Now that I know what I'm dealing with, it's much easier to absorb and to benefit from these rules now. I think that's how grammar should, that's the point of this video. That's how grammar should be consumed. For as long as I can remember every other language that I've learned, English for example, I have learned to speak bits and pieces of it with a couple of mistakes here and there. And when I can't make sense of the mistake, then looking at the grammar rule, my friend and me, my friend and I, this is a thing, you know. It's easier to appreciate these rules without giving them complex names when you already have some level of English or French or whichever language you're working on. Start with the basic phrases in the language and you'll benefit from grammar later. A couple of you guys have been reaching out to me about my phrase book. I'm gonna put that out for sale if you're interested to up your game. But hear me out on this. The best way to absorb French phrases is not to buy my product. I don't think any salesman is saying this. I'll put it up on the website if you want to buy it, but don't buy it. Make your own phrase book, watch your own TV shows. I've spoken all about that in this video right here. Another great place to look for good French phrases that are actually used in everyday life is Easy French, the channel with whom I collaborated to make this video possible. And a huge thanks to Tim Wicks, who was behind the camera taking these nice videos when I was doing my French thing. Thanks, bro. I'll see you guys in the next one, and keep learning.